Okay, everybody, welcome to this is Wednesday, August 30th, 2023. This is episode 43 of Web3x3. This week, we'll be exploring personalized advertising in Web3. My name is Marc Angelos. I am joined, as always, by my lovely co-hosts, Michelle Peterson-Clark.
Hi, everyone.
And Mike Neubauer.
Good afternoon.
So this week, we're going to be discussing how personal advertising is going to emerge as a pivotal piece of Web3 advertising, which we're not going to touch the AI piece of this because that will help it. But in general, advertising being personalized to the viewer / listener / audience as part of a community building effort is going to become an essential component of Web3, and this will explain why. I'll kick us off with story number one out of beingcrypto.com. There's a new study.
Can I just stop you for a sec?
Please.
Because I'm not sure our Bolt live stream isn't working. So can we just have a look at whether or not
tells me we are live, but if not, I can reset it. So hold on a second.
I see it.
Yes, it is now. It just came up now for me. I was just looking.
Right,
good. Thank you.
Listeners.
I just wanted to check.
Our Bolt love is as strong as it is for everyone else. Don't worry.
That's right. Hi, Bolt Nation. Yes. Mike just put that. Very good. Sorry, just wanted to check. Sorry to interrupt.
No, better safe than sorry. So story number one is that a new study reveals Gen Z to leverage Web3 in advertising. And there's an article here in beingcrypto.com. It discusses how personalized advertising will play a pivotal role for Gen Z specifically in their purchasing decisions. They say this is now Gen Z. Web3 advertising demands a nuanced understanding of the platforms. TikTok, as we know, is a cornerstone for Gen Z. The boomers are leaning towards Facebook. And this was news to me. Instagram is now the second most influential platform for Gen Z. Basically, 74% of the Gen Z surveyed found that a brand's values and beliefs significantly influence their buying choices. So let's start the conversation. I guess, Michelle, we'll start with you as the content marketing queen. You would know all about this.
I thought this was your story, Mark.
I've definitely got my opinions. Mike, you want to kick us off with some comments?
No, that's fine. I'm happy to do it. No problem. Yeah, look, are we surprised? I mean, I don't know. I think we're pretty good at coming up with these things and guessing these things, and we tend to have our finger on the pulse. We've known for a long time, haven't we, that if you've got a teenager that lives in your house, then you know all about TikTok. And if you don't, you've certainly heard about it, or you even see them in your the reels or whatever on Facebook these days. So that's not the bit that is surprising. I don't think how Web3 how businesses and how Web3 businesses are going to be looking for that. Ways in which they can capture people into that market, or people already in that market of that variety. I mean, I'm not sure how much money's left in the crypto turned AI bros for them to be advertised to, but you never know. So from that point of view, I think that it's it's certainly something to watch. There's been a few people that we know in different podcasts. This old marketing, Joe and Robert, often talk about how far ahead TikTok is now and what it's been doing, and the infiltration, particularly in the US market, that it's had. And, where it ends or where it falls out. I think all of the talk, isn't there, that it was going to be banned in the US. I think that's all gone away and is all pretty quiet now. So, from that point of view, I know some people who have been anti-TikTok forever and are about to, or if they haven't already, they're about to start to go in on TikTok. So it's an interesting thing for people who have businesses that aren't necessarily Gen Z. You wouldn't think that they would be typical of it. So how's it going to go with that? And I'm not sure.
Mike, what are your thoughts about this Gen Z leveraging Web3 advertising?
Well, first things first, I will not be one of those people that jumps in on TikTok.
Are you Gen Z though?
I don't know what I am. I wasn't born. I was hatched. So the interesting component of this that I saw is the actual graphs. The inversion between the baby boomers and the Gen Z from older technology to newer technology. Obviously, boomers being more on the Facebook side, Gen Z being more on the TikTok side. I think the intermediary there, which in this case is Instagram, but you can argue it's Snapchat, it's Twitter, it's all these other platforms as well. I think it opened the door for a lot of impulse buying, right? You see somebody doing something on a video, it looks good. Maybe you dealt with that issue that day. You're going to, just splurge and hit the button and ultimately buy the product and convert. I would argue that most of the branding efforts are done for that impulse purchase on social media like that versus actually building up a sustainable business and trying to brand and market yourself, the proper way that, I guess some of these brands traditionally have done it in the past. So you get a couple influencers, you get a couple people with a nice ass, and you throw them a product, and before you know it, they're holding your product, singing, lip syncing to some song, and that attracts people to open up their wallet now. I don't know what the sustainability looks like on that. I think obviously, this is going to be no different from any other big tech platform, which captures data, captures some sort of recognition software. The difference with TikTok is they use image recognition software versus just analytical data. So there's a lot more information that's obtained from the experience. And that's one of the reasons why they want to ban it. But I guess from a millennial or a Gen Z perspective, I mean, their necks are permanently facing downward, looking at the phone anyway. And again, we're talking about an addiction to affirmation, which TikTok, definitely supports, right? Like all of the likes and the love and the comments and this and that. And that's most virality videos that you see going now are from TikTok.
So I'm going to comment, and this has got nothing to do with the generational versus generational thing. Buying power only from a marketing perspective, sales and marketing, it makes sense strategically that companies want to target who has the money. Who has the most money right now for spending power, if you will, and you can Google this, is actually the baby boomers, interestingly enough, who are all over Facebook still. Now, coming up sharply behind them would be the Gen Z. However, Gen Z is saddled with student debt. And this is not just a U.S. dynamic. This is globally. So there's a lot less buying power than there should be there. However, the reality is they're digital native. They're savvy. And the companies know this. So where I'm going with this conversation is I really view this as a conversation around platform culture. I think that whether people know it or not, anyone involved in the Web3 space understands the concept of culture and community building. But I don't think that that's yet well understood in the business community, believe it or not. For all the Gary Vaynerchuk pounding on the table, et cetera, these companies still don't know how to make a TikTok. They don't realize it's a different story on LinkedIn. And so I really feel that marketing in general is going to have to get their hands around the fact that Web3 will demand an understanding of that culture if you really want to build community. And that is the core of what we're talking about here every week. Community building in Web3 is going to require a strategy on a platform that speaks that language. And I think that we're still a ways from that. What do you guys think?
And one of the other things too, I think is important, and I've read a little bit about this most recently, is that there are a lot of the Gen Z group that have decided that they're never going to be able to afford a house to buy, even if it's an apartment or, whatever. And because of that, they've made a decision that they're going to have better stuff and how they are going to have a lifestyle or, an image or whatever that they like at the standard that they want is going to be because they know they're not going to be ever have a mortgage. They're likely to be renters or, I don't know, living at home with mum and dad. So, they have the best stereos or they have the best computers, they have the best digital cameras, they have the best sneakers, they have the best, they wear designer brand clothing and all of that because their ability for discretionary spending when they're of that age, if they're not married and don't have kids and don't have a mortgage, is what are they going to spend their money on because everybody is looking for places to spend their money. And that's why I think that the advertising and those sorts of things on TikTok work well because those kids are like their money is burning a hole in their pockets.
So I want to put Mike's hat on for a second. This is about money. I completely agree with you, Michelle. I'm going to harken this back to Bud Light, though. And we all remember what happened with Bud Light recently. Bud Light, that controversy cost that company roughly $400 million in lost sales. That's by their own admission, so it's probably higher. And that's because they were tone deaf to their people. I think that when companies aren't able to make that connection, that whole concept of speaking the language of the people that are buying your stuff, Web3, it rides on that. Like they're the only reason people buy from certain people. We've joined communities because of certain personalities. The reason that you go to conferences is because of who's running the thing. That is the core d'esprit of what we're talking about. And I think that Web3 understands that. The companies don't quite get that yet, but these Gen Zs expect that the companies will convey what do they believe, what do they stand for. They want to know who's behind the brand. And I don't think that that's not accepted yet in the business community, as I mentioned, but in Web3, it's expected and demanded.
I think that's a false flag, though, because these types of social platforms, they do not implement the same community building efforts. It's all predicated on falsehood community, right? It's all about whoever's trending or whoever has the highest clicks at this particular moment. When I first read through this, obviously we'll get into friend tech later on, but the first thought that came up was something along those lines where, again, we talked about it last week. You know, if you have all these interactive and engaging posts and comments, and you throw a Web3 component behind it in order to be a part of that community, now you're paying for these friends, right? You're paying for the ability to engage and interact with them. This is the new level of what an influencer will provide. My question is, from an advertising perspective, who's going to fund that? Is it going to be a brand that tries to get their money back using the token as far as the engagement goes? Like, these are all possibilities. But again, it leads to, how do you seed into this new technology, meaning Web3, with this newer social platform that's on fire, such as TikTok, and target people who, yeah, maybe they have money, but I'm willing to bet that they're not going to buy a computer from somebody on TikTok, right? Like, it still is very much impulse purchasing, maybe even events.
This gets right to the core, Mike, of the spirit of who's behind what they're trying to build. Like, is it legit, or is this a business play for money, or are you a community builder that's trying to stand up for something?
It could be a combination of both. I just don't think that's the case here. But the ability to have both is on the table.
Right. I think that we'll actually expound upon that. The ability to have both. I'm going to use you as an example. Like, I'm going to guess some of the projects that I know you've been doing will do both. Is that what you mean? Or
our focus is obviously community, right? These people are in the boat with us, rowing in the same direction. If they don't exist, we don't exist. But at the end of the day, too, it is a business. There are expenses. There are experiences that we're providing to these people that cost money. And if these expenses don't get compensated from the actual product that we're putting out there, then the business fails. And all of this goes away. Yeah, we'll have friends. The community is the rock solid infrastructure, but everything that goes around, the common variable that brought us all together in this product or project can no longer exist. It's just a business transaction at that point.
Well, I think generationally speaking, Gen Z expects more than that. Right?
I think they expect a lot of tantrums. They're not going to get their house, fine, but they're going to kick, scream, and bitch and moan until somebody pays off their student loans for them, right? And they'll do that from the basement eating Cheerios.
I know. I aside from the commentary, I do think that there's a conversation there. Like, there's an expectation on the Gen Z side. You don't think so?
An expectation of what?
They want to know what a brand stands for. They want to know what's behind this thing. So when it gets to advertising,
I wouldn't give them that much credit.
I think that in a lot of cases they pretend to care.
I wouldn't give them that much credit. I think that they do this. They see which way the wind is blowing, and that's the product that they want to be a part of.
I would argue this, though, Mike. I'm not sure I agree with you. There's been this generalized advertising movement forever, right? Going back into the days of the 1930s in Hollywood. It's a plain vanilla message that reaches all audiences, and if you're lucky, you can segment. However, that expectation is now, I want to know who you are. I want to have a direct relationship with my brand. I want to know that you back me in my belief of XYZ. And so that requires personalization. That requires that we're heading to a world where you can customize, just like an algorithm on social with Web 2 customizes what you see. We're heading to that world for advertising in Web 3 and even standard. So my point is, the generations, the boomers aren't really in that conversation, and they don't want to be. And the X's don't have the buying power right now. But the Gen Zs do, and they want what they want. And I know you're saying it's just about influencer, but I don't think so.
Well, I also feel that these brands can pivot on a dime, right? So they might stand for one thing on Monday and a different thing on Tuesday and a completely contradictory thing on Wednesday, right? So who are they really? And is that important enough just for a one-time conversion or for a lifetime customer?
So that's
how are
the
they
question.
trying to make that target?
That is the question that every company in the Web3 space needs to be asking themselves, because it doesn't matter who the quote unquote general Gen Zs are. It matters who my particular targeting Gen Zs that I'm trying to serve are, right? If I know, go ahead, Michelle.
One of the problems I have, and I know we've talked about this before, but one of the problems I have right now with Web3 is that when the latest big thing comes along, which offers the participants something for free, because there are still a lot of people within the Web3 environment that are in the what can I get out of it space. And then as soon as it disappoints them, whatever level that might be, which if you're the creator or the person that is, doing the advertising or whatever in this space, you don't know what that is. As Mike said, on Monday they like something and on Tuesday they like something else. The problem you have here is that their loyalty can be bought, but as easily it can be lost.
Okay.
So we see things like when Blur, the marketplace, came out, everyone was in that because they offered airdrops of free tokens by how much you did, the wash trading, the transferring from my wallet 1 to my wallet 2 and back and forth and whatever, because everyone was out for what they could get from it. Now, I'm not, and I know at the end of the day, everybody wants to make money and all of that kind of stuff. But I think that when you look at people like, the Gary Vaynerchuks of this world, say, in the Web3 environment, there are people that are there because they like hanging with him, because they like what he says and what he stands for, as opposed to what they get from him in terms of if it's money or whatever. That's, in a lot of those people, it's a bonus. So how do you, in a Web3 environment, create a company or a business that people want to hang around you because of how you behave and what you say and what you do as a company? And then the byproduct of that is you make money because you sell stuff.
So I want to address that, but there's a comment here from Bubba the Storyteller over in Bolt. Thank you, Bubba. And you've got a friend in the business here, Mike, apparently. Bubba says, I'm inclined to agree with Mike here. Gen Z is more prone to blowing in the direction of whatever their friends and immediate social networks are doing. Yeah. I think that to address that, and also your comment about Gary Vaynerchuk's NFT community, Michelle, what's the priority? If it's to make money first, a la Bud Light, you can sniff that out. And they don't care for that ultimately. And if it's to build community because these Gary's, going to buy the jets and I want to help support him or whatever, then that's different than just trying to sell a few sneakers. And I think that it matters what the intent of the projects are. Mike, you can speak to this better than anybody.
I think the intent of the targeted audience is what's important here. The strategy of the marketing that the business is putting in play, let's call it on TikTok. Again, I would argue that the primary goal of that is to not get a lifetime customer. It's to get an impulse purchase, right? So there's your money grabbing endeavor. If there's subsequent marketing efforts that go behind that, whether it's email campaigns, whether it's whatever, now they're putting forth a different effort to try to keep that customer as a retained customer. Okay. And that's really where the cross goes from advertising to marketing. So this is an advertising approach, right? It's a shotgun approach. We're going to throw our brand in your face. Obviously, on a very noisy plane, what does value conversion? Is it interaction? Because that's usually what social media does. We talked about this last week with Friend Tech, like, you know, the thumbs up and, you know, the likes and all that crap that actually got people paid now. So, right. You know, if that's a business endeavor that Web3 can provide utilizing a token, then again, it's a revenue generating marketing tool. We've said this over and over again about Web3. Now, you can agree or disagree with how they use it, but the premise still remains the same. There's opportunity for revenue there.
I want to jump in. Go ahead, Michelle.
Look, I think that we have learned, particularly over the last 2 years, 3 probably, that yes, you can have a successful business where you're in the hamster wheel, where you're either constantly creating content or advertising to keep new people buying your product. Occasionally people might buy, you know, repeat buy or whatever. Or you can actually create a business and a brand. And in this instance, let's use Gary as a thing. His thing is, I want to buy the New York Jets. Now, there are people that have bought into that vision with him, that stick with him and stay around with him because they've bought into the greater thing. Now, ultimately, it's Gary owning it. And the person, you know, I mean, I don't know, maybe he might do a DAO that buys it. Who knows? But if you do not have something that is that longer term vision that people can buy into, I don't think in this space you are going to have the longevity that you desire. And I think particularly with COVID, after we've gone through COVID and everybody's stuck at home and people were, you know, contemplating their navels and working out what life's purpose is, you know, and now we've got this next 2 years where things have been up and down. You know, some economies are great, some aren't. You know, people are struggling, some people are doing really well. There's got to be something that comes along, if it's, you know, whether it's you like Nike or whether you like, you know, Gary Vaynerchuk buying the Jets or whatever. There's going to be something that you go, I'm going to hang my hat here, and this is where I'm going to stay, and this is where I'm going to be. And this is where I'm going to grow. No matter what else you do, you're always going to come back to that community. That's what I think we're looking at now. And that's what companies and businesses in this space need to think about, not just the navel gazing that we've seen a lot happen, which have resulted in rug pulls or whatever. And when we talk about the Friends Tech thing, we'll have a look at that too.
I want to clarify one comment, Michelle, something that you said just triggered. There's a distinction I'd like to draw between content and advertising. This article is about advertising. Content creates brand. That's what Gary's doing. Advertising creates transaction. Yes. That's what this article is about.
It's transactional. That's correct.
And in the Web3 world, it's not really about advertising, right? It's about content that creates community that builds towards something. Mike, you're not advertising.
Well, it should.
Right. I mean, ideally, but like in Mike's example of the Battle Bunnies or, you know, the Unfan, you're not advertising.
Yeah.
So I think that when we talk, we meaning the collective community of Web3, when we discuss this type of topic, what do the generations expect, et cetera, advertising is very different from content, and the content world is the path forward, obviously. Advertising is the blast approach. It's really yesterday's way of doing it. But in that world of advertising, it is going to be transaction driven. And even still, I still stand by these generations have expectation. I'm generalizing. But if I am advertising to a sneaker buying community for Nike or a soda consumption for Coke or whomever, I need to be able to communicate through my ads that I'm one of you. If I expect you, and they expect that. They want to know, you know, if I'm Republican in America, I want to know that my company that I support is Republican or vice versa. So, that's a universal. That's why that the people in ads always look like the people they're targeting, right? Ethnically, geographically, whatever. So,
I don't know. I've taken medication. I don't see myself running through a meadow.
Walking along the beach, looking at the clams early in the morning, Mike?
Definitely not happening.
Then you are missing out because I go through a meadow when I take my medication.
All right. I want to
Can I just say one more thing before we move on from that? One of the things that the boomer generation who are on Facebook, and being one of them, put my hand up, one of the things that is a problem that boomers tend to put up with, and Gen Z I'm finding won't and don't, is that you've just bought something, but you still see the ads for it afterwards. Someone who can create the software or the pixeling or whatever it is that is required, that when I click on the link to, whatever it is, some painting that I see advertised and I buy it, I don't then for the next 3 weeks continue to see that damn ad. Give me something that complements it or goes with it. It's like when you're on Amazon and they say, people who bought this also bought this. But getting to be, being advertised at for the thing that you just purchased is highly annoying and turns me off. And I know it turns lots of people that I know like that. So
I would push back. I'd push back with you on that, because think about the days before like all these MP3s and all this stuff. When you were in your car, you put on a cassette tape, you hear a song, you're rocking out to this song. All of a sudden you're like, the tape's done, I'm going to put the radio on, and the exact same song comes on. Do you change the channel or do you listen to the song?
Random.
It's random, yes. But the point of it is, the psychological component is that you are sharing that experience with someone else. If you are seeing those ads, yes, we know that it is targeted for us, but other people might think, oh, I tried that product, it's great, I'm glad other people are seeing this too.
I want to add some comments or share some comments.
I don't agree with that.
Coming across from Bolt here. Number one, Bubba the Storyteller. So potential revenue aside, Web3 companies are almost having to inspire their audience as much as provide functional benefits. I couldn't agree more, Bubba. I would argue it's not even just Web3. That is an accurate statement for all advertising. And Spanner adds that I feel the approach these days is about us telling a story rather than peddling a product. I think that we're saying the same thing here. My response to that, as I said in the chat, that needs to be a believable story. Your audience, Web3 or otherwise, can tell when it's authentic and when it's not. So, all right, I want to tie this to story number 3, actually, believe it or not, because it seems to be fitting. But the friend text
keep me on my toes with
the mic action.
Keep me on my toes with posting them. Yeah, no worries. Keep going.
There's an article out of the Web3 Daily called "Damn, So Friend Tech is Over Already?" And for those who don't remember, Friend Tech is a platform that lets you sell access to your DMs to your followers for money. So this platform came out a week ago or so, roughly. The company revenue dropped 95% in that week. The app generated $1 million on the first day of launch, and now is generating about $80,000 a day. So the bloom is off the rose here, as they say. What are your thoughts on this one, Michelle? I know you wanted to do the follow up on this. We even thought at the time this was a bit hairy.
Look, and the reason why I said we have to talk about it is that, okay, so, there have been booms and busts in Web3 over the past 5 years. Is this one the quickest? Like, this is even quicker than not that Threads is Web3, but this is even quicker than the drop off from Threads. Even Threads kept it up for 2 weeks. So this is less than a week. It came out on Monday the 21st, and by Sunday, so it wasn't even a week, it had dropped in revenue by 95%. And there are now people going, oh, but I bought this and I bought that, and now my coin or key, whatever it's called now, not a share, my key is worth, whatever. And it's astounding in its rise and its fall, but we predicted it here first. So everybody really should be listening to us every week, because they get to know all about these things before they happen.
Mike, you have strong opinions on this whole thing with Friend Tech. What do you think?
I had to actually do a genetic test and see if I was related to Nostradamus. But the writing was on the wall with this. Look, we said it specifically last week with respect to people wanting the opportunity to get screwed over again. And they were not disappointed.
And they got it.
They got it for sure. I agree with you. This is probably a record-setting pace for it. But this had the grounds for so many problems on the onset. Is it dead? Probably not. They'll figure out a way to resurface it. But I think that, once the Band-Aid is ripped off and people jump on the boat just to jump off the boat, there's still people left on paddling, and I'll reference the thumb in the air, seeing which way the wind is blowing. This is no different. People jump in on that and they jump out quicker than anything because their attention spans are minuscule. They see an opportunity to try to, do a quick cash grab as fast as possible. And that's how these little trendy pieces are going to keep popping up left and right. Some of them are backed by big tech, such as Threads. But once the dust settles and the smoke is cleared a little bit, and you can actually see where the foundation and the root of all these things are, that's when you're going to be able to make the determination if they're sustainable or not.
Right. I'm going to go ahead, Michelle.
And the other thing about that too is that it's not just that the volume in terms of what they're earning has dropped. Like people who have paid, real money for the ability to be in an influencer's DMs, because that was one of the big selling points. There's Twitter at the moment is littered with, I paid, 10 for this and now it's worth 0.01, that kind of stuff. Like astounding. Like I'm going to start, when this happens from now on, we should just start burning $50 notes or something like that, because that's what they're doing. Maybe we could start a DAO like that, Mike. People could send us their money and then we could like burn half of it and then go, oh, bad luck. That's what's happening here.
I'm going to remind both us and the listeners, our conversation last week was really that this is probably not going to work. Clearly we were right, but I mean, not tooting horns. It wasn't hard to see. But I also do think there's something here of the kernel of an idea of where Web3 may go. This is shining a light on not the right way to do it, but there is a new business model underneath all the ash. If you take a look, I think selling your followers up the river for money, probably not a good idea. However, the fact that there's another new way to make money, well, that iteration of it isn't good, but there's probably some version that could work, because this is a new way to make money right now. And what's the one thing that business is always looking for is what's a new way to make money? How do I do it without really burning my followers? And nobody of any great importance with a following is going to want to be on a platform that's just going to have their followers torched.
Well, again, it's a matter of how you conduct your community, right? You can run great communities and not torch them.
Unless I don't consider it a community. If I'm an influencer, there are people on Instagram right now. The pretty girl shaking their booty, as you would describe it, Mike, who are there to make a buck, and they are going to amass as big of a number of vanity metric as they can, because that's how they make their revenue. Those people don't care about their followership. You think Kim Kardashian is worried about what happens to her followers? Okay, so let's use that exact comment and segue it back to the previous story. These are the types of people that are running those ads on those platforms like TikTok, right? So they might not care, but that again proves the point I'm trying to make, that these are all impulse buys anyway. It's going to cost me $50,000 to get Kim Kardashian to drink my muscle milk or whatever. Like, I need to make 50,000 in that one ad as soon as it's published, or else it dies into the ether. People's attention spans are focused somewhere else on a way that they can burn their money in less than a week. Right.
But again, I feel like, just like all these other massive issues and stories that we are forced to cover here, there are black eyes and scars that do not define where the industry and where this technology is.
So I think if we boil this down, this is about the Web 2 ethos advertising versus the Web 3 ethos community. That's really the problem here, right? If I can take my Web 3 quote unquote NFT tokenized whatever and sell it for money and make a quick buck, that's not Web 3 in my opinion. There's Web 3 tools, but that's not Web 3.
Well, I mean, again, that exactly is Web3, because you are the owner of an asset that has the ability to sell that on an open marketplace, right? You're in control of whatever your involvement is with the particular company. That is Web3. Is it the community side of Web3? Not really. I mean, these are, but just like in any other investment, I mean, people buy stuff from brands all the time just to flip them. Sneakers are a great example of that.
If I build a Web3 community, Mike, around a coin that doesn't have my name, and I sell that coin later to someone else for another company, was that Web3?
Repeat that.
If I build a community around a coin that I issue, and that coin does not have my name or attachment in any way, shape, or form, and I then sell that as an asset to a third-party larger company for money, for me, just me, was that Web3?
Sell what? your investment of the coin or your investment into the community?
The coin itself.
So you sell the overall coin.
Right.
Okay. So again, that is a rug, right? Because people owning the coin really will be able to determine where that market is, right? But again, that power lies within the people that bought it, not with you. They'll tank you right under the rug if they figure out that you're going to do that. They'll sell it off and it won't be worth shit for you to sell.
Right. So
that's the Web3.
I'm highlighting but there's the Web3, there's the Web3 tools and there's the Web3 ethos. I like that term because it's Web3, as I understand it, and as I think this show would support, not to speak for us, but is about a shared vision and almost a mission, right? That's we're doing, and it might just be fun. It might be like what you're doing, Mike, with all of your projects. There's a lot of fun underlying that. People are there for socialization at the end of the day, but that's not just to make a quick buck.
No, it's not. But I also feel like this concept did not get invented with Web3 technology.
Right.
There are a lot of great businesses out there that still cater to things like that.
And I think we're seeing the Web2 uses of the Web3 tools, and it's going to continue. But I do think eventually it shines a light on a new way of doing it.
I agree. And that's where we have this show.
Right.
I mean, and I'm not sure it's 100% new, but I think that it has emerged as being more important in this space than it ever was when we started to have, Alta Vista and Yahoo at the beginning of the internet.
Right. All right. So I'm going to take us to story number 2, which is actually more important in my opinion than what this whole friend tech is going to play out like it plays out. But this was
just a good follow-up.
No, it's a great follow-up, and I think it was necessary. But this is an interesting one because this is still a gray area that has yet to be decided. There's a story here, Mike, this was your find out of The Verge. The SEC in America takes first action against an NFT project as an unregistered security. So the story discusses the SEC has said that the NFTs issued by Impact Theory, and anyone in the content space knows that's Tom Bilyeu, were unlicensed securities. So Impact Theory has agreed to a cease and desist. They're paying $6 million in penalties, and they are destroying the NFTs in question here that they still have. So this is the larger issue of, is an NFT crypto, and who controls crypto? It's still not clear who's regulating what, at least in the States. And I think that there's implications for all of this in the money world and beyond. Mike, we'll start with you since this was your find.
The problem that I have with all this is that they try to put and compartmentalize all of these things into one box or another, and then say, well, you got to follow the rules because you're in this box. One of the best comments that I heard about what an NFT is what an NFT could be, not what it is, right? So it could be a platform to raise capital. It could be an investment tool. It could be a passport to somewhere or a membership to something. It could be an entrance or a collectible. There's so many things that it could be. But the problem that I have with reading things like this is that it tries to, designate it in one path or another. And that's where we're going to run into all of the yeah, but moments. But there's people that invested or, purchased this collectible in exchange for access to X, Y, and Z. Yeah, there's a potential to flip it and make the investment on the back end, but it's no different as if like somebody goes out and buys a ton of Nike shoes and turns around and flips them. They're not owning Nike like they would be owning this particular token. And that's where the gray area sits in. But again, I really feel that, the designation of what NFTs could be is something that's going to sit on the exchange level before it gets to the NFT level. That's what really sparked my interest on a story like this, because the exchange level is not figured out yet. There's still wars going on with Binance and Coinbase and all these other things. And that's really the top of the waterfall. And that's where, you have the immediate link between fiat and crypto. Crypto is a mechanism that can potentially get into something like an NFT. It's a fungible token versus a non-fungible token. You can't buy a non-fungible token without a fungible token, right? I mean, you could buy it with fiat and all that stuff, but like the whole premise is that an NFT sits on a chain. The chain is run by a fungible token. So to put them all in that same box, rattle it up and say, I'm the government, here's what we think, I think that's a big mistake right now. But They want their hand in that same cookie jar, man. We've said that for a long time.
So Bubba has a comment here over on Bold TV. He says, could we get a definition of unlicensed securities for the amateurs? So it's not really a joke, Bubba, believe it or not. The official definition is, and I'm former Wall Street here, that you would go to the Securities and Exchange Commission and register your financial instruments, stocks or bonds, before you sell them to the public. That's officially what it's supposed to be. The problem here is with NFTs is this a technology, as Mike is describing? Is it a financial instrument representing money? And as we all know, it's really both. It's a lot of things. It can be access to a concert. It can be, a reward loyalty program. It could be a lot of things. And technology is used to execute on it. But there is financial, potentially financial implications involved here. So the SEC has said NFTs, by their view, anything, even crypto distantly related, falls under their purview. The CFTC, which is the Commodities Futures Trading Corporation, they take other side of it. This is that it's a commodity and that they should be regulating it. So the bottom line is, for the listeners, there's a tug of war going on in America between the regulators as to what these are and who should regulate them. How many years has this been going on now? Bitcoin is 2009. Am I mistaken? So
they're always way behind the 8 ball, though. We saw that with social media. That shit still isn't resolved, right? They still don't have an understanding of that.
And as we all know, this is about money. Who regulates this profits from it. In the end, if the SEC is responsible for making sure that, then you would have to go to the SEC with every NFT before you would issue it, even you, Mike. So, or whatever regulatory body it ends up being. So the implications here are money and control. However, it's too late. Cat's out of the bag. Like, this has been going on for a long enough time. I feel like people, and the SEC is an American institution. Hong Kong would be happy to have the business. Malta is working hard to get that business. Whoever ends up
Dubai, Singapore. Right. There's been quite a few that we've talked about, haven't we?
Mike, you have an opinion on Dubai.
I do.
No, wasn't it Abu Dhabi?
Right. So anyway, the point is, I really believe that there's not going to be the advancements, at least in the States, in this industry, the crypto industry, until this is resolved. But that doesn't mean the crypto industry doesn't advance. I think that this is the beginning of the loss of American leadership in the space if they don't get their head out of their butt.
Well, isn't that what the technology was built for in the first place?
100%. And I think it's doing a wonderful job at shining a light on the fact that you don't need the government.
And that makes them very scared.
But I also know, having been a creature 30 years in finance, New York City, that there's going to be regulatory control in one form or another. Now, that may or may not.
As there should be. Again, we're not against that here, right? We're not all about this this DeFi concept. There needs to be a referee and a rule book that's in play so that there is an equal playing ground. So you don't get friend tech pop up and soil the day, before somebody else is about to do something good with it. However,
they actually called themselves shares at the beginning, what they were selling.
Correct. Yeah. And there's a great example of it, right? So the problem that I have with the government side of things is that before they even understand what this is, they recognize it as a threat. And their first instinct is to try to get as much as they can now while it's hot before the regulations come in place. They'll build the regulations around what path they feel they can monetize the most from. And then you'll have your perimeter set. They'll set that regulation boundary.
They'll repeat that, Mike. They will set what they feel they can monetize the most. Who's the they in that?
That's the regulatory bodies,
right?
Whomever that is, whether it's a private entity appointed by the government, whether it's Wall Street, whether it's the government themselves, the SEC, a federal bureau, whatever it is. Right now, they're shoveling shit against the wall and seeing what sticks. Right. They're filing lawsuits against bigger players that can actually fight it in court. They're trying to get case law on the books. They're trying to do all these various things, all the while, by the way, getting their hand in the cookie jar. Right. Not one of these projects, not one of these concepts, not one of these lawsuits is remiss from millions of dollars of payouts. And the SEC is they're not saying, no, we want to be here to make sure that it's right and regulate it the right way. No, they're like, pay me. And we'll do that later.
Isn't that right?
Yeah.
And so Bubba, the storyteller, is mentioning, assuming this doesn't happen in the States, where would be the next best destination for regulation to happen? my response is here for the Bolt folks is Dubai or Hong Kong, in my opinion, are the lead horses because they're the most crypto friendly states and they're setting up funds. Literally, they'll give you money to move your project to their jurisdiction. Now,
I would say that they're the in front line for regulation, though, because that's
not in regulation.
Okay, I think that's what his question was.
So, Bubba, do you mean regulation as in like who's going to constrain the growth of the industry, or regulation as in where will people go because it's friendly enough? So
yeah, they're not gonna put restrictions on promoting the fact that they're going to be a hotbed for this type of technology because it's going to drive people away.
So the geopolitics, real fast, I don't want to get into this, but the US dollar and the fact that there's all this debt in the States and it's making their partners nervous. You've got the other side of the world being the Russian Chinese thing where they would love to be able to replace the dollar's hegemony. And I think that crypto could overturn the dollar. So whatever country can welcome and assist that would be able to take financial leadership from the United States. This is not the focus of this show. I just know that this is bigger than simply Impact Theory and Tom Bilyeu want to be able to issue NFTs to challenge Disney.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, no one knows anything. We pretend that we know what we're talking about here. We're learning like you guys are. But the truth is the crypto market is in play, meaning the entire industry could move around the globe anywhere. It's going to go where it's welcome. This is called capital flight. And I think that right now the U.S. is not doing a good job of making it clear what these things are and whether they're even welcomed here. Michelle,
They always seem to be playing catch up with this, which is not surprising, but surprising, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Astounding, in fact, because they could have had they've done some interesting things, and we've talked about this over this show over almost a year now, haven't we? That, like when they started with, Kim Kardashian got fined, and then there was Tom Brady and all of them with the FTX thing, and it's like, okay, so what's the? I don't think at that point in time they knew what their end point was going to be. Like, what was it that they were doing it for? I think, as Mike said, it was a crapshoot. They were just trying to go after or do whatever it was that they could. And now it's got to the pointy end where they actually need to focus in what it is that they work out, what it is that they want to get at the end of it, and then how do they get there? And I still don't think that they know that either. But then there's there's countries around the world, like we talked about, Dubai, Hong Kong, even the UK, are putting in place legislation to make that much clearer. So, as you said, the US could be in trouble with regards to that kind of, ability to stay up with or to keep the dollar as the thing that, is what everyone else is pegged to. Because as you said, it could be crypto and it could be anywhere at this point in time.
The problem that crypto represents for the U.S. specifically is that the U.S. can't print more dollars in a crypto run world.
Yeah.
And so that means paying off a debt that they really can't pay off. Yeah, I don't know how this plays out. It's fascinating.
They could have a coin for every president. They could have, Biden coin and, the Bush coin, Bush 1, Bush 2.
Well, that's essentially what the U.S. dollar is. It's just at different phases. Yeah, I mean, the only other option is that they pull a friend tech. They rug the hell out of the world.
And I don't think that's beyond them, to be honest.
Yeah, that's great.
I say that, but it's you guys, because you guys are American.
Proudly. All right. So I want to. There was another comment, or rather a story, Michelle, you had mentioned the Binance situation. That's not really on our docket, but it did come up in a little pre-conversation we had before going live here.
Yeah, so I don't know a lot about that other than, we do know that the SEC were looking into Binance, but it's kind of a little bit secret, like as in not that they're doing it secret, but what it is that they're looking into. But also my husband, who happens to be in Seoul in the Bolt chat, for those of you that don't know, who works for them, he said to me just before we came on that Binance are going to get rid of BUSD, which has been their coin, their token. for a long time, a really long time. So that will be an interesting thing that we'll be able to keep an eye on, because in theory, since they make the market, then, the price shouldn't tank or whatever, and they would be buying it all back, I guess. Don't know how that's going to work.
The news out on the wire here is the SEC has filed some secret court filings about Binance. Yeah. It's not public right now. So people are expecting bad news imminently, but the crypto exchange faces U.S. accusations of wrongdoing already, and now there's apparently 35 more exhibits filed against it, whatever that means. So either way, it's clear that the U.S. government has it in for Binance, whether it's legit and they get, it happens or not. It's not our concern right now. The point is, it's unclear what the legal grounds are for these tools, and these tools are already in play. Binance is not a small company. And by the way, they've proven that business model. And like I said, if it doesn't work in the US, it can clearly be launched and work somewhere else where it would be welcomed. So I don't know. That's not the focus of the show. This show is focusing on how marketing and blockchain can be used to help you grow your business. But it is interesting because until that clarity is achieved, a lot of what we talk about here is going to continue to be it won't take root the way it should because of the viability of it.
What role did Binance have in FTX towards the end?
They were
so basically the reason why FTX collapsed was because CZ put on Twitter that Binance were pulling out of whatever the deal was that they were doing with them because the financials couldn't be backed up. That was literally word for word the tweet. And based on that, the whole thing unraveled.
So is it safe to assume that certain people who had a vested interest in FTX could blame Binance for its collapse?
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So who are the primary benefactors of a lot of the FTX components?
You're getting at the government.
I'm getting on my tinfoil hat. Yeah. Politician. We're going to go after the people that went after our breadbasket. And this is, again, the muscle flexing that's going to continue to go back and forth here. What, again, bringing it back to that SEC article that I found for this week, the difference is that you're talking about an exchange level with FTX and with Binance versus now it's being trickled down to the NFT level. And I think that, again, just to reiterate that point for anybody who popped in now, the regulatory efforts and the efforts that the government needs to start putting forth have to be done at the exchange level first before it trickles down to the project level.
Yeah, it's interesting, Mike. I'm not going to go against you on this one. The FTX was Binance who held a large amount of FTT, which is FTX's coin, as collateral on the books there at Binance, and they announced unexpectedly they suddenly didn't like the look of the books over at FTX. They were liquidating all their position.
You mean they couldn't read QuickBooks?
It set off red flags, and that ultimately unraveled and led to the collapse of FTX.
Isn't that part of the problem? Part of the problem was that FTX didn't have QuickBooks properly, or set up whatever they didn't have. Anyway, that was
world,
like
right?
10 shows that we did about that. Go back and look at the replay.
Seriously.
You rattle the hornet's nest, the bees come back, right?
All right. I want to say,
but in theory, can I say though, one of the things I do know is in theory, the BUSD is backed 1-for-1. So,
okay.
As in they are supposed to have holdings that are 1-for-1 for their coin. So it will be interesting to see what happens with that.
All right. So now we're in the tinfoil hat territory, and you go in finance. So I got to go.
CZ has said many times on Twitter, publicly, that they have backing for their token.
All of these tokens, and I'm going to include the US dollar as a token, have no backing. Ultimately, it's faith and credit. Like, people believe in the thing or they don't believe in the thing. And so,
well, you could believe in one thing that's backed by something else that you might not believe in. That's how these tokens work. Again, we can create a token for Web3, right? We can create a liquidity pool for the USDC. If the USDC is linked to the US dollar and the US dollar crashes, so does our coin.
Right. I agree. That's actually what happened with Rally, right? All these coins disappeared because Rally disappeared. But my point is, at the end of the day, someone controls the quote unquote printing. Right. Yeah. Proof of collateral install. Good point. Good point. So I think that this is about control. Really, this is all about control. In the case of the match between FTX and Binance, that was more of an ego back and forth thing. But when you get involved at the government level, they don't like losing the ability to print. That's what I really believe.
And unfortunately, like you said, that toothpaste is out of the tube, man. Like they're in a very big predicament right now on just trying to throw as much legal problems in front of people as they possibly can.
All that will do is obfuscate and delay, but it won't change the outcome. The outcome is
actually, it might expedite the outcome because people would get frustrated and fed up with it, and they recognize that a technology exists that can combat it.
I'll remind everyone, though, that in America, the Wall Street finance industry has already been creeping into the crypto space. With the derivatives world, BlackRock. There's now you can buy and sell futures against these cryptos, specifically Ethereum and Bitcoin. So
I still hate that. That's such a deception for Web3.
I'm just making the point, though, that whether or not they poop all over this industry, it's already taking root in traditional finance.
Correct. And guess what? BlackRock pays taxes.
Right.
So they're going to get their cut whether they like it or not. It's just on the front end, the back end, or both ends.
I might, over a bar at some time quietly, Mike, we might discuss whether or not they really pay taxes. But anyway.
And can I just throw in that thanks to Caleb over on LinkedIn, and he said that, they really needed to consult Web3x3 over all the FTX finance.
I want to highlight Caleb. Caleb's been doing a great job, by the way. He's got a newsletter out for those who aren't paying attention. You should take a look. Caleb has been a longtime listener, contributor, and a supporter of the show, and we appreciate that. We are not doing this for money, folks. There's no ask here. We are trying to learn alongside you guys, and those of us who are on the journey with us, we very much appreciate your support and your contributions. This whole chat going on here, Install and Bubba, we really are grateful for your guys who come in every week, add to the conversation. It helps us understand the matter as well, and we're hopeful that what we discuss here brings a little light to you guys as well.
We do not want to be that chick shaking her ass on TikTok. We want to build a community
Mike
here.
does. Mike would be a good one for that.
I will not.
However, on OnlyFans, that's a different story.
All right. So I want to say thank you, everyone, for this week. We'll be back next week, Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern time. Again, we're on LinkedIn, Bolt TV, YouTube, and potentially some other platforms we're playing around with. So for those who are interested, you can reach us through the LinkedIn platform. It's probably our primary. There's a Web3x3 page. Otherwise, we want to say thank you, everyone, for spending the time with us and bringing the conversation.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Have a great night.
Have a good one, everyone.
Bye.